I thought I'd make a video, taking a quick break. I don't know, I'll probably finish the rest of the boat coming on the ship. Looks like I'll probably finish it, probably 5 days. I may finish it tomorrow, probably this weekend, just take a break. Kind of get some ideas what else I want to do. And it's one of the probably the most difficult. There's probably only like 20% of the rigging that I did as instructed, because the reason is I'm coming across a lot of issues with these pulleys, right? So when you make a model ship, just depending on what company you purchase, unfortunately, I haven't tried a whole bunch of different ones. Only Amati and Orca, Ocre, OCCRE. So anyway, when you build, you have these pulleys, right? When you have these pulleys, the pulleys, you ever see where on ships when they're like a good scene, it's like where you see White Fang in the movie, the wolf, in the very beginning of the movie, they're moving a load of like a ship, and they're moving all this cargo onto a ship. Well, the way that they did that back in those days is they had these pulleys. From what I understand, is that's why when you see them pull a whole bunch of times, it's because it puts you're able to lift an extreme heavy amounts of load, and it doesn't have to put a lot of pressure and strength to do it, but you have to do it a bunch of times. But you're lifting heavy loads, and those are also pulleys that work with that puts tension somewhere else, right? It puts the tension. It's just kind of like an arc. There's more strength in an arch than there is flat because of the pressure that's being put at the center point of that arch. It has more structure and strength. So, so the reason I say this is because they have these little pulleys, and I go into all these different questions. I don't know, with psychology and what they do with the items, but they have these little pulleys that have two tiny holes in them, and they're like a millimeter thicker than the ones that just have one hole in them. But you notice that whenever I look at these little pulleys, they have two holes in them, but they're mismeasured, and they're not actually straight like that. And on top of that, it's the holes that are in between each, right next to them. There's a very small, the gap of it is almost like probably 2 sheets of paper, that if you try to even put a thread through there, you'll get one thread through there. You try to get 2 in there, and you won't be able to, because the thing is that depending on how, the way that I see this is, I'm making me pass gas. The way I see this is when they're in the manufacturing company, I'm assuming that I was assuming they have machines that do it. There's a machine that goes do it, but it looks probably more handmade, I guess. So the holes aren't actually on point. And they also sometimes give you the exact number of pulleys. So giving you the exact same number of pulleys, and given that they're being hand drilled, it looks like that you're probably going to find at least a couple of them that go wrong. And then you have to reorder. It takes 2 to 3 weeks. But the holes the 2 holes are supposed to be very evenly separated from one another, in the symmetry of that, so that you can put a thread, which is the illusion of a rope, right? A tiny version scale of it, and then another one through there, so that when you're rigging and you're going down and you're pulling, it has a good movement. It gives you the option that you're not just constructing. One second. it's not that you're just constructing something. It's the idea that it gives you an option. Like if you want to go play show and tell, and you can be like, oh, it moves and it looks pretty cool. Some people don't do that. Some people just, whatever kind of display. I like it to have ranges. But the thing is, regardless, when you put the string through there, all it takes is for that little piece of wood between the two holes to just break. And once it breaks, then it's over. It's done. It's over, because then you have one. You only have one hole now. And so they're very, very tiny, and you have a very, very little amount of room to make a mistake. And they only give you so many. So I think I was a short couple, or I couldn't get it because they didn't drill the holes correctly, and they were kind of uneven, so it broke on me. And I was like, and when I'm in a better situated, I'd like to be able to build, several of them from top to bottom as instructed. But this one is going to be really creative. The way that I see this is kind of get an idea of how these riggings, how you have these ropes that are support beams to keep this sort of foremast and your mast, and kind of give sort of an understanding of it, the harnessing of the veils, how you want to do all that stuff depends on the person that does it, because the thing is that whenever they send you the picture of what it's supposed to look like, and then you look at the actual book that they send you that has photo pictures, they look different. They don't all look the same. And so then that becomes very, very frustrating to me, because, well, this instruction says this, and then this instruction, this is where the experience comes in, because when the experience comes in, you kind of know a little bit better. Join my Dindilian, or however you pronounce this, Dindilian, tea, detoxing tea. So, in building these in these ships, one second. So, in building these ships, you can think what you want. I always put angels and Jesus, crucifixes, and make it of interest. Okay, I think I'll always do that to probably almost every single boat, because look, we all live in fantasy worlds of whatever it is that but. Most of us grew up with Christianity and understand these types of things that go on in the world, and people have different perceptions about everything that goes on. But one thing is it's good for promotion. It's good to put the awareness. It's to not blindside it that it doesn't exist, and where the church is. So to find some hope and some blessings and comfort. So. Sometimes it's not the best place. So, but you just don't ever know what's going to happen. I don't ever know what's going to happen. It can happen to me. I'm 41 years old, so sometimes I feel like I'm pushing too much of the limits here. Anyway, so I have these ships. I've had to do a lot of repairs, some major repairs, which I thought it turned out brilliant, in my opinion, because the massive addition that looked like it hit an iceberg, and I was able to repair it. I was able to fix and give it the best fix it could. It still looks broken, cracked a little bit, but I think it adds character. I think it does. Like if you look at the ship, it definitely looks like it has life to it. It does. It looks like it has a lot more life to it. So I think that going to finish this up, and I have all the rigging that is sort of just as is, pretty basic in principle. I'll go through much of it, and didn't go through much of it on this other boat that I made for Marco, but you know, it's Alberto's going to my uncle, and I think it's so far. I think it's the most complicated one that I've made when it comes to the rigging. When I did the Calandria, which is the Catholic Day, I really didn't use any of the strings, hardly any of it, hardly if any, very little of it, and it was very simple. So what I did with this, the rigging is a little bit more complex, so it did give me some good exercises to understand how rigging works. There's a lot of stuff in the rigging that you start to go into comparison to what is it that this company, what is it that this marketer is doing to try to just, sell this item, or just give you more work to do, thinking that you're just, doing it because that's what the ship is. That's somebody else's opinion. Even when they sell you the pictures, their pictures look different. To me, I prefer usually to be able to know that, okay, this string has a purpose to this string, and this is why harness is here, because this is how the system works. So that when you look at a ship, you know that when you sail and you're going out there in the ocean, this is how we need to get to function. You need to be able to use the drifts. You also have to know the ideas of repair when something goes wrong and something needs to be fixed. So obviously you could, you put too much pressure on the mast and it entirely breaks, and you can't sail at all. You're in the middle of the ocean. What do you do then? So, given the idea that you're looking at a ship, it's great to look at it educational-wise. The way that I look at it, and the way that I see that, it's like, oh, okay. So, if I was on a ship and I was a miniature me on that ship, I knew that this string would lead this to string, and this string would lead to this string, and I thought that would be great. So I think that this is it's a wonderful project. I enjoy it, and I still haven't used like the honey thread. Honey wax. This honey wax that they have. There's a honey wax that they have that is like, when you look at the thread looks very, like, if you go to a museum, I saw them in Washington, D.C. I haven't been able to go to too many that I could ever think of. I'm trying to think of some places that I've seen them before, other than being a kid in a museum, and I'm sure I have somewhere, I just can't remember. But I do know, at least when I saw them in Washington, D.C., which is obviously going to be, at the Navy place, the thread that they have, you could tell it's just not, I'm passing gas like crazy. So the thread looks real pretty, and the reason the thread looks pretty, and I couldn't understand why, I don't know if they were using glue or a special glue, they're actually using wax. So they'll do the wax, and it's also easier to handle by hand, because the thread is it's cotton, and it becomes very difficult, too soft. So when you have the thread, it's easier to maneuver, and it's a very clean finish. It's a very, very clean finish, which all the little hairs on the thread are kind of a clean cut as well, and it has you're able to see the grooves in the thread a little bit more clear. Some people, it is for that reason, it does, but I haven't used the rigging yet. But I like to be able to use a rigging from top to bottom, exactly how they construct it, because then it gives me an idea. I wasn't able to do it with this one because there's a lot of other faults that I come in as well. A lot of the times I'm doing it, I feel like I'm doing it exactly as the measurements. Like I did it exactly as the measurements that it said on the exactly on the measurements that it said on the instructions. Yet whenever I get done building it, it's not turning out exactly the way I want it. The reason is because you have to have, the foremast and the main mast. You have these two extra poles that stick out, and when you have these poles that stick out, you have this sort of veil that you have to put in, and it doesn't fit in. Even though I did it exactly page by page, when I get to that point, the measurements didn't match up for some reason. So I don't know if that's just my fault, my mistake. I think some of it slightly may be my mistake, but I don't think it is. I think it may be the differential idea that you kind of have to use common sense. Well, I have to think ahead of time. Okay, well, this is going to how it works, but it's still even after 6, 5 boats, after 5 ships, I'm still learning to this stuff. So it's great. I love the artistic part of it, where I can add sort of all these other elements. But I like to be able to build some of these from top to bottom. But hopefully it's enjoyed. It's great. It's great to display because it's a lot of compressed artwork and a lot of working hours in one area. I probably have a total of, it's measured to be, it takes 200 hours. What is it? 200? Let's say 180 to 200 hours. I think I remember online is what it said, or 140. No, the Polaris was 140, was 120, and then this one's 140. So 140 hours. I probably put 225 hours into this, and my estimation, because when they're building these ships, I'm sure they have like a clock, and they just press like when you're playing chess. You make a move. Okay, well, you're working, complete, and they time that, and then that's equals up to 140 hours. That's very clean cut work and professional, and probably it's just not going to happen with most people. Usually they need a couple of more hours, but my estimation is always to add at least 10 hours, even if you were really good at it. Just because of all different, you have to have space for errors and whatnot. But I would estimate I would probably put about 225 hours into this. It cost me about $500. I had to add a bunch of different custom-made items and adjustments. I still, every time in every ship that I have made, I have always felt disappointed in the detail that I feel that I can do. Like I feel like I can feel like I can go into so much more detail, very intense detail, but you have to keep moving forward. One of the things that's sort of stuck with me is I remember a really good point that I heard Brittany Palmer said. She said you got to know, that's the thing about artists that are painters. You have to know when to put the paintbrush down and understand when something is complete. Something is complete. Okay, well, it's complete. Just to know where your stopping point is, and that's complete right there. So you have to understand that. And for me, it's like, I want to, I feel like I can go into so many different. I got some really great ideas to use dry ice for an example. Is to use dry ice and even have it set in, you could set it on a table or in a dining room, and you're at a party or somewhere, and you can throw some dry ice. I could custom make something inside the ship that you could purchase your own dry ice, drop it in there, and it swiggles like it's smoky, and it looks, on a Halloween party, or give it this sort of spiritual sense of life and travelness and mysterious, mystic feeling to the boat and environment around it. I thought that would be really cool. I'm learning also the fact that I sort of disassemble the boat and make holes here and there and chambers. So I also understand the different chambers that there is. So when I'm building the ships, there's dividers all throughout the ship, like 5 or 6. And You can't get through these chambers unless you break through the wood. And it's very thick wood, but it's really cool because you can add a whole extra room, add some mysterious effects to it, all kinds of great creativity. And it also really made me understand how when the Titanic sunk, the Titanic sunk, I don't know for those that know, the reason they said it was unsinkable was because they had these slots, these doors that slammed all the way to the bottom and prevented that if anything were to ever leak, they could shut a door and it would stop the water from coming in, and then they would shut and they could isolate the water from ever it sinking. Well, for some reason that didn't work and the water kept on leaking through. So, but it gives you an understanding that these slots, whenever I'm building these ships, how it goes from one chamber to the other. But I think it's great because you can add different compartments. I haven't seen anybody else. That's the thing about most people that build these ships. They build them as is. I haven't seen anybody ever add their own theme to it. Like you do everything the instruction says, and then you start throwing in all your own elements. So I haven't really seen anybody do that yet. So I still have a lot of fun doing it. So given the idea that I don't know when's the next time I'd be able to build some ships, I'd like to be able to build some of the more fancy, like the uprunning ones, is the Flying Dutchman into Titanic. I really thought I could build and really look forward to finishing the Titanic here at this apartment, but I have to give a solid 4 to 5 months. Solid 4 to 5 months on that project, because that is something I don't want to touch. I don't want to add any elements to it. Just as is. If anything, I will add like one item, like a beautiful girl, or like just a heart, or just like a diamond. Not even that. Like just as is. And the Titanic is made out of metal, obviously. And so they have these sort of clay that you have to sort of sand down. And so I'm not really familiar with that, and I can't make the mistake of making a mistake on that, because the Titanic project, that is like $500. I think the ship was it $500? Yeah, it was like $500 just the ship alone. That's without the paint, that's without the glue, and that's without any other mistakes that you come across. The thing is, there's not much rigging to it, and still has the same amount of difficulty as these other ships that have a lot of rigging strings to it. So I thought that I'm really looking forward to building this ship. It's like Titanic is like, I feel it's like the sort of the dream ship for me. Obviously everyone likes it. It's a great, and I know they just came out with the Black Swan ship. And I've been meaning to post it on Instagram. They came out with the Black Swan, and the Titanic is not just made by Orca. Amati also came out with their own Titanic, and I'm not really too sure, but besides me getting excited or whatever, all these ships that I want to build, the thing about this particular situation is I don't know what my environment is like. I don't know, it's very depressing to think that, somebody could, like they did before, and take some items from me, and then I'm missing out on the instructions, and the instructions tell me something else, and then they screwed it all up for me. Just like when I was working on this, the instructions told me it's supposed to be 2 pulleys. No, it's 1. No, it's 2. And I was like, what the heck is going on? So I have to work with what I have and move forward. Move what I have and move forward. And it's frustrating. But I work along and do the repairs as I can as I move forward. But one thing is guaranteed is always to have some biblical understanding. Okay, everything I have, I'm still working on the practices and everything like that, and I do plan to build ships, hopefully, and donate into like a homeless shelter, like a kids sort of charity drive or something. You know, like I'll get a raffle ticket and give a kid a free, you know, $300-400 boat, you know, ship. Even though it's not really made for kids to play, it's, you know, you very likely not to find really the sort of authenticity to it. So, at least in my opinion, you know. So, yeah, and I thought that's what I do, and yeah, and there was also one thing that I wanted to talk about in this video, but I have to make another video on this.